Hi guys, Romans here and welcome to another installment in my The Best Insert the Music Genre Has to Offer series, where I'm giving you tips for the best albums within a particular genre. I also review all of the albums from a viewpoint of a musician, as I am a singer, songwriter and a bass player for my own group Jakobay, and more than 2 years ago we released our debut album called Pursuits in Life. What makes it unique is that it's a heavy prog rock without guitars. Instead you have drums, bass, saxophone and keyboards. You can check out all of our music videos on my YouTube channel.
Make it count. Every day you can start anew. I want you to scream. Life is now. There's nothing you can get through. Just don't give up the dream. Yeah.
And in the description of all these videos you will find all the information about where's the record available. It's available on all digital platforms like Spotify, Tidal, Deezer, iTunes, Amazon, Bandcamp, but also in this digipack version of a CD with a very beautifully illustrated 20 pages long booklet. So in case you want one, all you need to do is contact me via an email, on Facebook or on Instagram, or you can get one through Bandcamp as well. And today I'm gonna give you a few more tips within AOR.
Music review. Music review.
This is the second video in the series and the second one dealing with AOR as well. If you haven't seen the first video, be sure to check it out, as I recommend some genuinely fantastic and some of the best albums within the genre. Plus, I also went through some explanation as to how these series work. So there are more genres I'm planning to do, but for now I'm gonna stick with AOR. And last time I recommended, well, let's say 5 albums by 3 bands. Today I'm gonna recommend you 4 albums by 1 artist. And today I'm gonna talk about Paul Janz, Canadian singer-songwriter who was active in the 70s with some of his brothers, if I remember correctly, with the band Deliverance. But I've found only a couple of tracks on YouTube and their records are generally pretty hard to come by. And then in the 80s, basically since like 1984, 5 depending on the source, until like 1992 he released 4 solo albums. I'm gonna mention all of them in this video, so I'm gonna go through them chronologically. Let's start. His very first album is called High Strung, and depending on the source it was released either in 1984 or 1985, I'm not really sure. I have this album on a CD at home, which is I think a 2004 remastered version, and this album is sometimes labeled as high-tech AOR, and for many years I thought that high-tech meant just a more technical, almost like a progressive version of AOR, something like Toto, where you had really skilled musicians playing pop music, but that's actually not what high-tech AOR stands for. It's more of an AOR that's more dependent on multiple keyboards and synthesizers, electronic vocals, and let's just say all of the modern equipment that was available for music production back in the 80s. This kind of makes the music sound more dated probably, but you know, for me personally, that's not a problem because I absolutely love the 80s, and for me that sound is just the best, so I don't really care about it. So his first album, High Strung, is exactly the high-tech AOR, and the first and the title track, High Strung, is basically a very good example of that. Another good example of this is I Go to Pieces, which was one of the hits because he shot a music video for it. Then we have Don't Cry Tonight. This song has such a strong atmosphere. I absolutely love it. And I love those like electronic vocals that make this song oddly beautiful. Close My Eyes has a great chorus. This is why I love the 80s.
And when I close
Solid Ground is an interesting song because the chorus speeds up and when it ends it goes all total on itself. It's very cool. Another 80s jam is All I Have. Suggestions of Love is a great tune. My favorite track of the album is Cover to Cover. I love that very serious, almost like 80s thriller-like intro. Then we hear upbeat verses. And then that big catchy chorus. Right from the start is a gentle ballad.
Right from the start, it was you right from the start. Right from the start, I could tell I lost my heart.
And the album ends with Waiting, which is another solid track. Now we move to his second solo album, Electricity, from 1987, which is slightly more in the traditional AOR territory, and a very good example of that is the first opening track, One Night Is All It Takes. The title track Electricity is very cool, especially the bridge where we hear this very complex vocal arrangement where at times I wasn't even sure what's happening, and I think it's really great. I Won't Cry is a beautiful track.
There to tell. There's a cheating heart in your lover's face. You won't make me cry.
And so is I'll Be Your Eyes.
I'll be your eyes when you can't see the light, when your tears blind your sight. Like a candle, I will show.
Another jam is We Touch.
We touch, I feel sensations streaming through me, burning warm.
Send Me a Miracle brings immediately Toto to mind. It's very uplifting and very well written. Believe in Me is another great track, and I especially love that child chord that comes for the final chorus. It makes it really epic. One interesting thing about this album is that we have the track I Go to Pieces from the first album here as well, re-recorded. I kind of never really understand why artists do that, why they would take a song from a certain record and put it on another record, but I think this might have to do something with being exported, like the first album probably didn't break through internationally, so he was kind of hoping for it with the second album, and I Go to Pieces being probably his biggest hit at that point was included on this album. I don't know. Anyway, I usually delete this track from my playlist when I listen to this album because that's a track from the first album and I don't like to mix it up. I've heard it only a handful of times. The production is a bit different, but I haven't heard too many differences actually. Angel is a very artistic track and also very imaginative one, and that saxophone solo is just a cherry on top. Alien is an up-tempo optimistic rocker.
You shake my world, then you turn and walk away. You steal my breath, then you leave me alone. In your eyes I'm late.
And the album ends with a great One Last Lie.
Tell me one last lie before we say goodbye. Just one last lie. Say that you.
When I come to think of it, similarly to his first album, like literally every song could be a big hit. Like I don't really understand why he wasn't as famous as Toto, Foreigner or Journey, but you know, this is like top class quality songwriting. We're gonna continue with his third solo album, Renegade Romantic, which came in a year when I was born, 1990, and the opening song Every Little Tear is just so catchy. Like there is no reason for it not to be a hit, even though it's not.
Every little tear you cry, every little heartache in the night. You know I'll be there for you, baby. I can't stop.
Hold Me Tender is more of a tender AOR.
You get the message I'm sending. I'm yours. I'm asking. Hold me tender, say you need me. Love surrender.
Rock It To My Heart is a great up-tempo song.
Window, sugar kisses. My baby, she's the real thing. I don't need no backseat of a rented car. Smooth moves, muscle on the boulevard. Don't give it a cruise.
Almost Heaven is a typical AOR track.
Almost heaven. It's here inside our hearts tonight. We're gonna make it to the other side.
Stand is a beautiful ballad, and again we have saxophone here. You just know how much I love saxophone because my record is full of that, so every time I hear saxophone on any song I'm just, you know, excited immediately. Stuck on You is like a groovy pop song.
Can't you tell that I'm stuck on you? I'll hold you like a rock, I'll stick like glue. There'll never be a woman who moves like you. No, no.
Another optimistic song with great vocals is Love Walks In.
In the room, baby, can you see? With a craze and a crush that comes over me. Love walks in. Love walks in. I feel
One Loving Touch has these laid-back verses that then transform into this really big and catchy chorus.
making believe you don't mean that much. I'll be getting over you. One loving touch. That's all I need to make it through this night. One loving touch.
Darling Drive is probably my favorite track of the album. I love that keyboard riff at the beginning, and the chorus is very artistic, very unpredictable, and just absolutely brilliantly written.
So take the wheel and glide. You and me should collide. Tell me love's a lie. I'll be free. All I want you to.
The final track, Saddle Up, is kind of a rock song, but maybe this is the weakest one on the album because that "Saddle Up" that always just it's kind of funny. I don't know why, it always makes me kind of laugh, but it's an okay track.
This thing. Carry that ring. Can you feel the sting? It's equestrian swing.
Okay, now we continue to his last, fourth studio album, Trust, from 1992, and here you can hear a shift in the music style and music direction, which I'm gonna talk about in a second. So the first track, Working for My Baby, is exactly that, like 90s pop with funk edge.
I got a real good woman, she's dynamite. She knows how to treat me right. Working for my baby. Working for my baby.
And Calling My Personal Angel pretty much continues in the same way, and it brings Toto from the 90s to mind. Something like Tambu album.
I need refuge tonight, and that's why I'm calling my personal angel. I need you now.
You can definitely say that this album is very different to the previous two albums, which were kind of in a similar fashion. Then we've got Kingpin Cool, which is like a groovy track, but there's this one moment, I think after the first chorus, where the horn section, or is that synth or keyboard, I'm not sure, plays like a wrong note, and they are like, no, and then they play a right note, and it's like, yeah. And I never really got used to that moment. It really like puts me out of that record, and it's like waking up. Maybe there's some point behind that, but I didn't really get that.
You're so kingpin cool.
Wind Me Up is a catchy song, and it creates a little bit of contrast after the previous three tracks, because this is kind of straight to your face hit. Another solid track is Prince of Pain, King of Fools.
You won't be killing me on this midnight blue. I'm not your prince of pain, your king of fools. I won't be crying over you. I'm not your prince.
You're Never Alone. Now, this is a quintessential AOR track from the 90s. Fantastic chorus, and I'm kind of running out of compliments here, so I'm just gonna repeat myself. Fantastic track.
Never alone. Every hope you breathe has wings, and in harmony I'll sing. You're never alone.
Take Me Back is that gospel / funk pop song, and those female backing vocals in the chorus make it really stand out.
Won't you take me back to that lover's dance? Summer night romance out on the docks. On the docks. Baby, take me back.
Amazon Rain. Now, this is a big song. I love that gospel chorus. Absolutely brilliant track. Always is a bit more reminiscent of his previous two albums.
I love that loving look in your
Get Arrested is exactly that up-tempo, bright, optimistic, rock-ish AOR that I just love. Light a Candle in Your Heart is a piano-led ballad and a very beautiful one, actually a unique song within his discography because he never had such a minimalistic track arrangements-wise.
You light a candle in your heart, send it like a telegraph across the world, and when I close my eyes, I'll see it shine.
And the final track, Praying, man, I gotta appreciate this song. This song blew me away. It's like made just out of like a choir, and he's singing there. It kind of puts you into that place like being in a church. It has a very heavenly atmosphere, but in a very positive way. And we even hear saxophone here, which is cool, but all those vocals is just so inspiring and so great. I love this track.
You make me feel such joy, more than spoken words can say, and I'm praying, into your hands I fall.
So there you have it, 4 albums from Paul Janz, all of which are a must if you love AOR. And Paul Janz is an interesting story because after this album he stopped doing music and he became a professor of theology at university. And there was this interview I've come across on YouTube, you can find it too, I can post a link in the description and below. It was from 1994, and I think it was a report from some kind of a gig, I guess from his hometown. And he gave this very short interview where he was talking about working on his 6th solo album and on some kind of a music score that was ahead of him. And I was like, 6th solo album, like which one was the 5th one? I guess it's probably the compilation, or he also released a record called Songwriter in 1989, but this was like his material that was offered for other artists. So I don't really think that counts. So I guess he was counting his compilation because I wasn't able to find anything else. But anyway, he was working on his follow-up record in 1994 and it just never materialized, which is kind of a shame because his discography is so strong that it would have been interesting to see him continue. If you like this video, consider supporting me by purchasing my debut album Pursuits in Life, because I include audio samples in my videos and thus I make my videos the most informative and entertaining to watch. I usually run a risk of getting a copyright claim, meaning that I won't be able to monetize my videos, aka I won't be able to make any money out of it. So the best and the only way how you can support me is by purchasing my debut album. And there's a lot of saxophone, so I'm pretty sure you're gonna love it. Are you a Paul Janz fan? You can let me know in the comment section below whether you agreed or disagreed with me. Maybe if you have heard all of his 4 solo albums, which one is your favorite one and why? You can follow me on Facebook or on Instagram. You can find the links to both in the description of this video below. Also, if you like this video, don't forget to like, to share, to subscribe. You can check out my own original music, my live performances, my worst to best series, and quite a lot of other music reviews as well. Thanks a lot for watching.